So we're here with Alondra Cano, who is from Minneapolis. She's on the city council there, and you're a Bernie Sanders supporter. You came down here today to help support him at the caucus. What is your primary motivation for supporting Bernie Sanders?
I think Bernie has done a wonderful job of shifting the political reality in our country. And so the work he did in 2016 is yielding so much fruit and results now, where you see a lot of the candidates who are running today supporting healthcare access for all, education for all, workers' rights, the Green New Deal. So for me, it's really paying homage to all of that work that he did back in 2016 that has really inspired young people and so many diverse communities and long-term residents here to get up and go vote and make a difference.
You know, absolutely. That is probably the biggest success of this movement, was the fact, even though Bernie Sanders didn't get the Democratic nomination in 2016, he absolutely moved the party to the left. He moved the entire country to the left. And we would not be having a conversation about Medicare for all today if it had not been for Bernie Sanders. I agree with you on that. I actually had found some video of Bernie from 1987 where he was talking about Medicare for all, universal health care back in 1980. I know, right? So you look at that video and you're like, my God, that could be his stump speech today. Yeah. So he's been very consistent in what he supports and his beliefs. What are some of the issues that Minneapolis is facing? I know you've got some rent issues as well. We have big rent issues in California with affordable housing, et cetera. I know that's an issue for you folks as well. Is that something that you focus on?
We actually do have some impacts around affordable housing and displacement and gentrification, but I would remind people that Minneapolis, out of the 450,000 residents, 40% of those residents are diverse people, and so we have a really big immigrant population that is directly impacted by the Muslim ban, by the raids and deportations and the concentration camps on the border. So I think for many of us, it's really this old Wollstonian belief that we all can do better if we all do better, and so we're trying to make sure that our low-income residents are safe and stable, that folks can go to school without fear of getting into like life-crushing debt, that our immigrant families who have revitalized our commercial corridors are able to stay and grow their families and participate in society in a healthy way. So I think we're all just really excited and really just so pumped to get Bernie into the White House and to really get our country back on the right course.
That's right. So you folks have a large Somalian, actually, immigration population. I don't know that a lot of Americans realize that. So, and speaking of, I know Ilhan Omar is constantly attacked online by a lot of the Trump anti-Muslim folks. Like, I mean, they say horrendous things, like life-threatening, horrendous things. Do you have a big problem in that area at all with white nationalists coming in and causing problems? Like, I know in California sometimes they have these rallies that they stage, and a lot of these folks don't live in that area, but they come in to do these rallies. Does that happen in your area?
We have had some death threats specifically put against our Congresswoman, Ilhan Omar. So we know that it exists, and we are aware that that is a danger, and this is one of the reasons why we have to get Trump out of office. The type of hate and division that he's fueled in the nation is beyond out of control, and it really is hurting our nation's ability to compete in this global economy, to really provide a good, healthy place for folks to live. So this is why we want to support Bernie. We want to get caucus scores to come out. We're here in Nevada. I came from Minnesota. We have another volunteer who came from Seattle. So as you can tell, you know, the excitement is very contagious, and we are 100% ready to make sure that he can get into the White House and turn things around.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, we spoke to some folks yesterday that came all the way down from Canada. So these are folks that are so invested in the movement. Well, you know, and I was talking with them, and one of the things they brought up is that Canada, even though it has universal health care, they've just had some of that stuff rolled back by the current government. So the Canadian government, even though it's sort of supposed to be a liberal in office right now, he's still very much a neoist. He's a neoliberal, and so privatization is very much on the table. You've got the whole issues with the tar sands oil and the First Nations. So, which I'm sure you know because you guys are closer to the border than we are. So speaking of the border, do you find that DHS or ICE or any of these folks, do you think they parole the Canadian border as much as they do the Mexican border?
That's a good question. I'm not as familiar with that issue as I am with how the immigration is impacting our local Latino community and our Somalian refugee community. We also have a large Hmong community, and one of our city council members in St. Paul, actually, she's the first woman, Hmong woman to be elected and who's out supporting Bernie. So you have a very diverse coalition that are standing up behind our U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders here, who's now running federally, so we can all consider him our senator. So it's really
I consider him my president.
So we're much more focused on like what's happening in the Twin Cities, what's happening in St. Paul, Minneapolis. Less aware of what's actually happening in Canada, but I'm sure we can dive in and look into that as well.
I'm just wondering because a lot of this anti-immigration stuff that Trump administration is fueling is definitely against brown people.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think like I'm a firstborn American. My family's from Sweden, but I don't get hassled for anything, obviously. So I mean, it's definitely racially motivated. It's pretty disgusting. So what do you think is going to happen today? I feel like there's a lot of energy out here for Bernie Sanders. We have people starting to flow in now. I'm guaranteeing that he's going to make the first 15% cut.
Yeah.
So do you think he's going to prevail today? Also, who do you think is going to realign with him? I think maybe the Tom Steyer voters. I think some of the Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang voters. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see Bernie come out with a strong first place finish here in Nevada. He's invested early in the state in local leadership, in local communities that reflect the demographics of Nevada, so I think that's really important. He's leaning in on key themes such as family, art, and culture to get people to come out and vote. And so when you speak to communities in such a deep and authentic way, I think it really shows at the polls and here on Caucus night, Caucus Day.
I know.
So
it feels like night.
I know. It's like we've been waiting for this.
It's Vegas.
Always night. So I think he's going to have a really good showing today. In terms of like where the other numbers fall, we saw that at the debate, Elizabeth Warren had a very strong presentation. We see that people are after the Iowa results, which put Bernie and Buttigieg in first and second place. There's more people that are now going towards Buttigieg. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see how those alignments follow throughout the day. And I think it's going to rely really on the ground game and who's been really investing in getting organizers out. As you can tell, the Bernie team has several volunteers here already to connect with caucus goers. So I don't see any Buttigieg folks yet.
No,
I see
Warren.
I see Steyer. So we'll see. We'll see how kind of the mechanics of the day go on.
So I don't think, one last question, I don't think Bloomberg actually thinks he can win the presidency. I don't believe that he's that delusional about himself. My question is, though, why do you think he entered the race? He's wasting a lot of his money. God knows he's got like how many billions he can waste it. But what is his end game here, do you think?
Well, if we assume that he's not able to win the presidency at the end of the day, then perhaps his entire operation is based on influencing the election and trying to get those voters to provide some kind of a way to shape the election. So whether it's, maybe shaping the delegates as we go into June, trying to make sure that his business interests and those like him are at the table. It could just be sort of a power play to make sure that that voice is there and that the issues he represents are discussed. And then we'll see where the actual folding in of support happens at the June convention with the delegates and the superdelegates.
Do you think we're going to go into a second vote on that, where the superdelegates get to participate?
We could. It really depends on how many folks stay in, until when, and where that support gets thrown. I know that some people have expressed the fact that, if you're kind of one of those candidates that's towards the bottom, you should really just start packing it up and just getting behind some of these candidates so that we can have as much time as possible from now until November to get the votes out for a certain candidate.
Bernie Sanders.
Hopefully Bernie Sanders. We want everybody to support Bernie Sanders. We are here for Bernie.
Right on. Thank you for talking to us today. Appreciate it.